One, he was a mentor. Two, he was a man full of prophetic insights. Three, he was deeply spiritual. Four, he was a man who loved this country.
The influence I will say that Pa Elton had on my husband, Archbishop Benson Idahosa, will be that Pa Elton was a spiritual father to Archbishop Benson Idahosa.
His house was a mecca of sorts for believers across the country. People came from all over to see him, some on personal issues, some ministries wanted counsel, and so on.
Show us the ancient path, lead us along eternal highways. We want to walk in the ways of Jesus. We want to enter your rest. Show us the ancient path.
A wise man once said, "Great works of heroism are often done by men of no name." While names such as Charles Finney, Smith Wigglesworth, and Kathleen Coleman are well known within the church, there are many more within the not quite popular bracket that have similarly done tremendous feats in their selfless labor for the advance of the kingdom. One among such men whom Nigeria and indeed Africa in general should not forget is late Pa S.G. Elton. Who was Pa Elton? What was his contribution to Christianity? What are the values in his life and ministry that this generation can learn from? These and many more are issues this documentary feature is set to address in order to provide a roadmap back to accurate kingdom building for a strange church generation.
Grace and courage to carry the cross. Show us the ancient paths. Lead us along.
His name was Sidney Granville Elton, S.G. And he was born on the 16th of April, 1907. I've got that particular. I've got his birth certificate in Wolverhampton, that is in the Midlands of England. Then his father was Ernest Elton. He was a mechanical engineer, and his mother was Edith Elton. My father was the firstborn, then they had a daughter, and then they had a son. It was just the three. But his mother died when he was about 7 or 8 years old, and his father died when he was about 12, 13 years old. So that he grew up having to look after his, just take care of his other brother and sister. So then he was at one time he was, went through Rolls-Royce factory and learnt about Rolls-Royce vehicles, all the engine and everything. He was going to go into that work, but he got out of that and somehow came into wireless radio engineering, radio work, and he became a wireless engineer, as it was known in those days. That's a radio mechanic, a radio engineer. And so he was on that work when he came to Shrewsbury, Shropshire, England, which is where my mother was. And he came to lodge with a lady, an old woman, who was my mother's aunt. And my mother was living with her in Bellevue, Shrewsbury. And when he came to lodge there, that means he slept and ate there, but he went out to work. My mother was there, and she was a good Christian, my mother, and she witnessed to him. And as I heard it, they had many arguments, because my father was from a more or less socialist background. Not atheist, but more or less socialist. They didn't believe in gospel and going to church and so on. But my mother belonged to the Plymouth Brethren Church and was strongly on preaching the gospel and truly converted. So she preached to him, and they had many arguments. But in the end, he too gave his life to Christ and was converted through my mother.
You give us grace.